We are going to get this started. Good evening. My name is Shino. I am on the board of the Education Council Consortium, and one of the things we do is provide this kind of workshops for parent leaders so that they can better serve their communities of students and families. We are a nonprofit organization made up of parent leaders ourselves on the board, and we support each other. We provide not just workshops, but supporters meetings for us to come together and share networking and all that great stuff. So, yeah, once again, just please put your name and your role so that we have a record of you being here. That would be great. We're going to start with a very quick overview of what is a capital plan. Many of you already know this, but it's good to have a quick review. So, what is a capital plan? Capital projects are those that cost more than $50,000. That seems arbitrary, but that's how the city of New York defines a capital project. It has to be a physical, tangible, brick and mortar type project. So that means a capital project cannot be a after-school project or an arts program. It needs to be something tangible. Technology can be eligible even though a laptop or desktop computer does not cost $50,000. There are ways to get technology under the capital project. Usually it's a classroom set of laptops. So that's like 30 laptops that come in a cart. So together as a package, technology can be a capital project. Again, it's not for hiring people or running a program. That's considered an expense budget or expense project. It also has to have a useful life of 5 years or more. And this is actually important in those of you whose school is located in a leased building. If your buildings or if your school's lease only has 5 years left, then you cannot get capital funding. It seems unfair. This is something that I have been working on to try to change. But as of right now, whatever capital project you get funding for, it has to have a useful life of 5 years or more. By the way, you can put questions in the chat, but you should also be able to unmute yourself. So if you have any questions, just go ahead and unmute and ask, and we'll stop. We're going to keep it a casual, informal group here today. So the capital plan is the plan that is prepared by the New York City Department of Education and the School Construction Authority. It follows the New York City fiscal year, which is from July to June 30th. And this is something that's important to remember because we talk about fiscal year or FY 24, 25, and it gets a little bit confusing because the city's fiscal year starts on July 1st. It's not the calendar year. So FY 2025 means fiscal year that starts on July 1st this year and goes through June 30th next year. So whenever you see this fiscal year 2025 or FY 25, just think July 1st this year through June 30th next year. The capital plan that was just released last November is for the fiscal year 2025 through 2029. Capital plans are 5-year plans. But there is an annual review process and an amendment process every November. So the new 5-year capital plan came out in November 2023, but there will be an amendment, proposed amendment, that's going to come out in November this year. Usually it's not a huge difference between the original and the annual, but sometimes the School Construction Authority may be putting a little bit more money here and there. That has happened in the past. But sometimes they take money away as well. And you can access all these School Construction Authority documents from the School Construction Authority website. By the way, you will have this PowerPoint. I'm going to email you the link tomorrow, so you don't have to take any notes. You will have everything that's in here plus additional resources available to you. Capital plans have three major sections. The first one is the capacity. That's how many seats we have in the school system, how many schools we have. So it has a section on new capacity. This tends to be in districts that have severe overcrowding. There are many districts like that in Queens. In general, Queens is pretty overcrowded. Early childhood education, these are also new capacities where they don't exist. Class size reduction is also a capacity project because you need to create more classrooms to reduce class size. And then there are things like temporary classroom units that are supposed to be removed. These are really temporary classrooms that are not real constructions that have been on some school grounds for more than decades, and they are slowly removing these. And facility replacement. This usually refers to those buildings and schools that are in leased buildings. Sometimes they lose leases, so then we need to find a new location for the new school. Those things all fall under the capacity. And then there's the capital improvements, which is really what we're going to be talking about today. And these are upgrades and repairs, as well as enhancements. So under this, there is maintenance to keep good state of good condition of the building, but also included are capital enhancements that are things that are really nice to do, like library enhancements. Those are not necessarily maintenance or repairs, but you want to make your library a really welcoming, user-friendly space that could be considered a capital enhancement. And then there's a whole bunch of mandated programs, such as the lighting fixtures that were mandated probably over a decade ago. Some of the fixtures has PCB, so they needed to be replaced. Asbestos abatement continues to be an issue because we have such old school buildings where there is still asbestos present. And then there are code compliance, the building code compliance. We're going to be focusing on the capital improvement section because that's really, these are the projects that are relevant for the various funding sources that we're going to talk about. So we're going to do a quick quiz. Which one of these are capital projects and which ones are what we might consider expense? So you can put the answer in the chat. Replacing all windows in a school building. Go ahead.
The replacement windows is capital. Repair the broken window too. New curtain in an auditorium, probably. New furniture, no. Classroom reconfiguration, no. Renovating the science laboratory, yes. And renovating the cafeteria, yes.
Aha! All right, Wanda, let's see. Replacing all windows? Yeah. Repair a broken window is actually not, right? We're talking about one broken window. That shouldn't cost $50,000. So,
oh, no, that's true.
Yeah, one broken window, no. I'm not sure where the threshold is. It's a really gray area where you hit that $50,000 threshold, but one broken window is not going to be a capital project. New curtain in auditorium, likely not. It depends on what else you might do in the auditorium. But if you're just replacing the curtain in the auditorium, it is unlikely that's going to hit that $50,000 mark, unless you are really getting that super expensive velvet curtain or something. But I don't think they're going to allow you to do that. So likely not, but possible. New furniture, surprisingly, is not capital eligible. It's one of those things that are tangible. And if you buy a whole bunch of, like a classroom set of tables and desks and cabinets, you would think that's going to come up to be $50,000, but furniture is not considered capital eligible. Classroom reconfiguration depends on how extensive a reconfiguration you're thinking. If you are just knocking down one wall to connect two small rooms into one classroom, likely not a capital eligible project. But if you are significantly reconfiguring classrooms on the floor, it can hit 50,000 mark relatively easily in New York City because construction is expensive. So it could become a capital project. So this is one of those gray areas. Renovating a science laboratory, absolutely. And renovating the cafeteria is also capital. Okay. So what is funded in the capital plan? State of good repair. So this is the really bread and butter of the school construction authority. They want to make sure all the buildings are actually in a state of good repair. This is really kind of boring stuff. It's not fancy. It's not ribbon cutting stuff, but it needs to be done, especially in some of the older school buildings that we have. Building conditions assessment survey is where the school construction authority figures out the state of good repair is needed, as well as some emergency repairs as well. And this is a survey conducted by engineers and architects with the principal. And it's a very thorough and comprehensive walkthrough of the school building, looking at every aspect of the physical plan of the school and rating various elements of the school on the priority scale of 1 to 5. High priority conditions are often included in the capital plan. These are sometimes code violations or public health hazards or safety hazards. You can access the building conditions assessment survey at each individual school's DOE website. So this is not the school's hosted website that has schoolxyz.org, but it's the schools.nyc.gov. And you go to the Find Your School function and you pull up your school's website that's hosted on the DOE website. And then you go to the data and reports section, and then you go to facilities, and you will see that the building conditions assessment survey is one of the reports that they post on that school's website. There's one little thing that you should know. So those curtains and broken windows and leaking toilets and sinks, those things happen. Those are under the purview of the Division of School Facilities. They do the routine maintenance and repairs unless the repair is really substantial. There are times when a school gets flooded from severe weather, and then it requires extensive repairs like the replacement of floors or replacement of some substantial portion of the school building. That gets kicked into the school construction authority. But if there's a leaky pipe in the girls' bathroom, that is the Division of School Facilities. And just routine maintenance of making sure things are functional, that usually falls under the Division of School Facilities as well. And minor improvements are also taken care of by the Division of School Facilities. Again, if you just want to remove a cabinet, built-in cabinet from the classroom to create more space, that could fall under the Division of School Facilities. So these are non-capital improvements to school buildings, and they take care of these non-capital eligible physical improvements to school buildings. And there's a whole website where you can actually, your school can actually request this work order from the Division of School Facilities. I'm not familiar enough to know how they decide what can be done. I think there's some budgetary constraints. The custodians have their budget and they have to figure that out. But this is also a good thing for you to know to support your schools. CECs can also consult with the Division of School Facilities before submitting the list of requests. So some of you are serving on the Education Council right now, or the citywide councils. And as you know, you're going through the capital improvement requests process right now. I think the deadline to submit may have passed already. I haven't checked that yet, but you are supposed to solicit capital improvement requests from schools in your district, and then you're ranking them by priority. CEC is the Education Council, Community Education Council. And every school district has one. High schools are under the citywide council for high schools. And they're supposed to collect capital improvement ideas from the schools and rank them and submit them to the school construction authority every January. Now, we always get some projects that are sort of borderline. We don't know if it's going to be capital eligible or if it's going to be division of school facilities. If you're serving on the CEC, you can actually meet with somebody from the Division of School Facilities and go through the list of projects that you're not sure about, and they can assist you in figuring out which ones are eligible and which ones should go to the Division of School Facilities. Thank you. January 12th was the deadline. So most of you submitted the ranked list of capital improvement requests from your schools to the SCA already. But just remember, as a CEC member, you can reach out to the Division of School Facilities and collaborate with them on these requests, because a lot of principals and a lot of schools don't know if something is capital eligible or not. So these are some of the capital enhancement that the School Construction Authority has done. Library. This is a beautiful library. I really love this. So fun and inviting. Cafeteria redesign is one of the big projects that I'm actually pretty passionate about. This is something that Lunch for Learning group is pushing for. This is the upper right photograph that I'm showing you. This is actually a school cafeteria, right? It looks more like a deli or a little lunch places that you might go to when you're working. I mean, I certainly have delis like this near my office. This is one of the design improvements that the School Construction Authority came up with that makes cafeterias look more like a real deli, and it makes the space more inviting and also removes the stigma of eating school lunch for students. So it's less institutional looking, more like a commercial establishment. Students feel like they're in the store. So this has actually improved students having school lunch. So this kind of renovation is definitely capital eligible. Here's a science lab. This actually is a science lab, I think, in the Bronx High School of Science, which is really amazing. It looks like a university science lab. And another thing that's really a wonderful enhancement, and this is what I do for my day job, so of course I get excited about this, green roofs on top of school buildings. There are so many benefits to green roofs. So that's definitely capital eligible. You will probably have to request funding from multiple sources to make something like this a possibility. I think this one, it's PS 41 in Greenwich Village. It took them 6 years of advocacy and heavy campaigning to get this green roof up there, but it's possible. So let's really talk about what we are here for today, how to get your school's capital project funded. Okay, there are 4 ways to fund capital improvement projects. Community Education Council project request. That's the one that I was just talking about. When the plan is released in November, that's when community education councils and citywide councils start hosting school construction authority presentations. School construction authorities come to the meetings to present what's in the new plan, whether it's the new plan for the 5 years or the amendment to the plan that was released before. And they walk you through what's in the plan for your district or for your school categories. It's high schools, then they'll be talking about high schools. And at that point, the community education councils start outreach to the schools to solicit capital improvement requests. And schools submit those requests to the CECs, and then the CECs rank the projects in order of importance or priority, and then you submit that list to the school construction authority. Now, realistically speaking, most of the projects that community education councils submit to the school construction authorities are not funded. When I was on the District 2 CEC, we used to submit 40, 50 requests every year. And every year we get a response back from the school construction authority saying, no funding available, no funding available, no funding available. Once in a while, they would say this project would be considered, but not necessarily included in the capital plan. They will consider it. So seems like a futile effort, but I think it's actually a good thing to do to make sure that the school construction authority knows what the real capital needs are in your district. If you don't submit the list, then the school construction authority won't know what the schools need. So even if things are not funded, CEC should definitely submit a list of projects every year. And then there's the New York City Council Resolution A funding, also known as Reso A. There's also the Borough President Resolution A funding. So when we say Reso A funding, these are the two pots of money that we are talking about. And then finally, there is a thing called the participatory budgeting process. That's another way you can get money for your schools. So let's go through one by one. The Community Education Council capital request has this timeline. I just quickly went through it, but visually I'll go through it again. November, the capital plan, the new one or the amendment is released. November and December, CECs reach out to schools and host a meeting by the school construction authority, the presentation on the capital plan. And then December and January, schools submit requests to CECs. And then in early January, CECs rank requests and then submit the ranked list to the school construction authority. In February, the school construction authority will release a revised capital plan. And then in April, the PEP, the Panel for Educational Policy, will vote on the capital plan. And then in June, the City Council votes on the capital plan. So that's the general timeline. Resolution A, again, it's offered by New York City Council and the borough presidents, has a slightly different timeline. But let me just talk a little bit about what the Resolution A funding is about. It's discretionary funding available to each city council member. So every city council member around the city, all 51 of them, should have the Resolution A funding available. Schools and some nonprofits can apply, but nonprofits have a different process. I'm not going to go into that. And there are restrictions for nonprofits to access Reso A capital funding. So schools are definitely eligible and they are highly encouraged to apply for Reso A funding from the City Council. The best thing to do is contact your school City Council member for specific deadlines for application and the application process. I checked some of my city council members that I know, and their websites don't have this information. So you really need to just contact your city council member's office and request information on how to apply. To find your school city council member, you go to mygovnyc.org and you plug in the school's address and it'll return your city council member contact information for you. Now, I don't know if this is still true, but when I was on the PTA for my daughter's elementary school, and this is more than, let's see, more than 15 years ago, for my daughter's elementary school in the West Village, all the principal had to do was to send a letter saying, this is what we need. And that was it. And the city council member would take a look at it. And sometimes they came up with money to fund. So I don't think this is a very onerous process. Wanda, go ahead.
So I'm sorry, my voice. I'm doing PB and Reso right now with 3 council members in the Bronx. The that website, the mygovnyc.org, is giving a lot of issues to enter. So I'm going directly to the New York City Council and to the little part that says find your council member. And that one is a lot easier. And also they tell you exactly what are they working on. Because of my close relationship with 3 of the city council members, right now, not all of them are opening it. Mind you, that I was aware that on the 12th was the deadline to submit any projects. Ah, I didn't want to go and say it right now, but my CEC has failed flagrantly. It's horrible. because this is the main reason why I decided to run for a CEC. So I'm very sad that I hope someone hearing me. It's my voice. It's not the best right now. But long story short, um, they are supposed to be sending emails, but what are the possibilities of them saying anything, especially when the deadline has passed? We do have the on the 19th, which is this Friday, if I'm not mistaken, until 5 p.m. to submit all the Reso projects for the Bronx Borough president. So I don't know because of course I'm in the Bronx. I don't know if there's different deadlines for the all the other borough presidents. So I'm just leaving it as that.
Yeah, borough president has a different process, so I will get to the
Yeah.
Bronx borough president in a minute. Yeah, but thank you for the suggestion for the going straight to the city council website. So council.nyc.gov, there is a find your council member function, so that's a good way to find your city council member. I go to mygov.nyc.org because it gives you city council, state assembly, senator, congressional people, all the representatives in one website. But if it's glitchy, definitely go to the New York City Council website. Well, sorry, man, go ahead.
Hello, good evening, everyone. For the city council, yes, the process is still the same. The principals for each school send over the council member the request, but unfortunately, I gotta go and find uh first where is the who has the paper, because some of them handed it in person, so I have to ask each principal if they have a hard copy so they can send it to me, because the council member have not answered them and it's going on a year. So yeah, but this is still the same process as far as the principal will send the council member whatever their request is, and then the council member is supposed to answer them in a timely fashion from what I understand, but that has not happened in my district. And as for the CEC member that spoke about the Bronx, each borough president has their own deadline.
Yep,
Thank
and
you.
I'll get to that. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you for Christina for posting Chiose, who is awesome. He put it up on his website. That is great because I don't know how many council members have done that. So if you're in his district in Brooklyn, definitely check out that website. Okay, so the timeline is different for city council from the main school construction authority timeline. January is when they usually release the application. So most of them, if they're allowing schools to apply, then city council members should be accepting applications now. And then usually the deadline to apply is in March, but check with your city council member because each one has slightly different process. And then June, the city council vote on the New York City budget, which is where this Reso A funding is included. And then July to September is when the Office of Management and Budget review the budget and the proposals. And then October, November, School Construction Authority receives the budget approval from the Office of Management and Budget. And then the project starts in November. So this is just to show you, you apply in January, but nothing happens until November. So schools should be aware of that, especially if you are in a school that is in the leased building towards the end of the lease. This timeline actually becomes critical because if you apply in January, but project doesn't get started until November, you're almost losing a whole year in the application process. So when you start the application process, if you're in a lease building, then you need to make sure you have 6 years, right, in your lease. And the project sometimes takes a long time. So often this actually means you need to have 7 years left on your lease to access capital budget. Just a little thing to remember. If your school's in the DOE building, that's not an issue. Okay, so that's the City Council Reso. So Chiose has an online request form. Some of them, some others will just have you send an email or a letter on the hard copy. check with your city council member. Borough president, Reso A, is all over the place. So Bronx Borough president has a deadline of January 19th. That's like this week, Friday. So if you're in the Bronx, you have to go through this process with the Bronx Borough president this week.
Just so you know, the deadline is 5 p.m. This Friday.
Yeah,
Nothing 11:59. Not a minute after 5 p.m.
that's right. That's right. So just keep that in mind. And then I'm giving you all these links because every borough does it a little bit differently. Brooklyn and Manhattan both have a deadline of February 22nd, I believe. Queens might also be. Staten Island doesn't have any information on this on the website. So I'm sharing the contact information that I found on their website. I'm not quite sure why they don't have any website-based application process, but you can definitely contact the person. I think she's the budget person for the Staten Island BP. So I don't know when they start, what the process is, or what the deadline is. I'm sorry, but that's how it is. So you'll have the links and you can check everyone differently. Now, in the past, Manhattan Borough President had a particular interest area that she wanted to prioritize. I don't think any of the BPs are doing that this year, but just be aware that sometimes borough president will say, okay, I want to focus on healthy eating habits. So I'm going to prioritize capital requests that have to do with cafeteria upgrade. Doesn't mean that the borough president will not fund other projects, but those schools that are applying for cafeteria upgrade might be prioritized. So some of them do. Yeah.
Joel has a question about whether schools apply for both a city council and a borough
Yes,
president.
absolutely. And you should, because usually a pot of money from the city council isn't enough. Well, I shouldn't say usually. Depending on the scale of the project, you're going to need your city council and borough president to kick in money to get it done. So absolutely do apply for both. Yes. And you should even reach out to your state assembly and state senators. They do have discretionary funding as well. They don't have a public process for that, but it doesn't hurt, especially if city council and borough president are saying we're kicking money to do a total gymnasium overhaul. Then assembly and senate might want to also try to find resources too. The borough president Reso A process timeline is a little bit different. So the December, January is when application is released. The borough president definitely had the application open in December. Manhattan and Brooklyn didn't have anything until just last week. And then, except for the Bronx Borough president, the other ones have a February deadline for the application. And then June is the city council vote. And July is the OMB review, which is the same as the city council, but the application timeline is a little bit different for the borough presidents. So remember, you have a little bit more time. If you're not in the Bronx, you have a little bit more time. If you're in the Bronx, then you got to do it this week. Couple things that I want to point out. If your school applies to both city council and borough president, again, the deadline for application may not be both in February. So you got to just check your deadline carefully, right? The Bronx is earlier than your city council Bronx members. So again, some borough presidents have a different deadline. Now, if you're applying for both city council and borough president, you should, sorry, I misspoke. If your school applies to both city council and borough president, the deadline may be the earlier of the two offices, right? Which would be the borough president's deadline in February. City council deadline can be in March, but If you're applying to both, then your deadline is earlier in February, and you definitely should communicate with both offices and let them both know that you're applying for both funding sources. Some borough presidents, again, Bronx has a earlier deadline, which I think might also mean that if you're applying for your city council in the Bronx, you also have to do it by January 19th. Again, consult your city council member's office to get that information. Best practices. Build a relationship with your city council member and borough president. This is really the best way to have your chance of getting projects funded. Usually there's an education policy analyst. Well, I guess it depends on the council member or the borough president, but the borough president tends to have this education policy analyst or education person, but definitely have a community liaison person. If you can build a relationship with a chief of staff, that's even better. But there are a variety of positions within the borough president's office and the city council office that you can build relationships with. But keep in mind, some of the staff positions turn over really heavily. So you can build a relationship with a community liaison for your city council member, but next year that person may not be there. So to the extent possible, you should try to get to know the city council member, him or herself, or the borough president themselves. You should invite them to school events. That's really a good way to start building relationships. So whatever school events you have, add them to your invite list. Communicate with them periodically. If your PTA has a newsletter, add the electeds to your distribution list so that they receive your updates on a regular basis. And if you don't have regular communication with your parents that you can share with your BP or city council member, just shoot them a note once in a while and say, hey, we got this great thing we're doing, and just keep them in the loop and keep your name and your school on their radar on a regular basis. Oh, again, add them to your school newsletter distribution list if you have one. You can also invite them for a walkthrough to review your capital request, right? They actually work for you. So don't be shy about inviting them and say, hey, I want to schedule a walkthrough of our building so that you can understand our capital needs. And you do that with a principal. School leadership team would be a good place to engage this kind of thing as well. And then have them walk through and point out the capital needs. If you have falling ceilings, or if you have non-functional bathrooms, or if you have peeling floor tiles, those are the things you want to point out to your council members just to raise the issue of capital needs. But I gotta say, they tend to like flashy projects, right? That they can have a ribbon cutting and a photo op with. Fixing peeling floors isn't as enticing to them. It's good to have them understand the needs for your capital project in your school, but they tend to want to fund things that are, fancier.
Jill has a question about
Yep.
computers breaking and the computers thought to have a used life of 5 years. Go ahead, Jill.
Yes. If you get a classroom set of laptops or computer laboratory set of desktops, technology is considered capital eligible. Even though they don't really have a useful life of 5 years, they made an exception for technology. So you can definitely have a conversation with your borough president's budget liaison and city council member. Finally, participatory budgeting. This is your last pot of money that is potentially available. What is participatory budgeting? It's a democratic process for deciding how to spend public dollars. It was started in Porto Alegre, Brazil in 1989. And New York City Council began participatory budgeting in 2011 with just 11 city council members. And my own city council member back then, Corey Johnson, actually was one of the 11, and I was actually on the very first participatory budgeting delegation committee, and that was actually a lot of fun. Today, there are 29 city council members participating, which is kind of sad. Out of 51, there are only still 29 members. So I don't know why some of them don't do it, but you can check who's participating from the participatory budgeting website, which you will have a link to later. So residents in the 29 city council districts will have the opportunity to get involved, and there is a variety of ways of getting involved in the participatory budgeting. And residents 11 and older can vote for projects, which is pretty cool. 11 and older, right? Sixth graders in middle school can vote for projects, which is a great thing to know for your middle school in your district that could use some capital improvements. And these people do not need to be US citizens. If you have a child or if you live in the district, then you can vote. Yes, Wanda. Wanda, you're muted. Go ahead.
So due to the fact I've been doing participatory budgeting since 2014, and because I represent District 75, and due to the fact that although District 75 schools are co-located, not necessarily the people living in the neighborhood, as of 3 cycles back, we decided amongst all the other budget delegates that anybody who has a school, a District 75 school, that it's not in the neighborhood that they live in, because of the amount of time that they spend in the neighborhood and in the school, including the students over 11, as you mentioned, and the people working in the school that are more than half the time in that neighborhood are allowed. But that was a waiver given by the council members themselves, because they was not considering, they at the time when this happened, they were not aware of what District 75 entailed and why we're so collocated. Right now, in my position in CECA, I represent 17 schools. So out of those, I'm working, well, um, they decided that yes, we're going to continue doing that, and I've been working with the Office for Participatory Budgeting, the main office, not through the council, to put it in the way that you are adding it or mentioning it over here, so they can add it and bring it to attention everywhere. Not because I am telling you, but because it's already established that this is like that. And I am really, really happy about that.
That's great. Thank you
That's
so much for sharing. Is it okay that if somebody from amongst the Education Council Consortium supporters want more information, can I send them to you, Wanda?
absolutely. I
Great.
am the
I
senior
think
budget delegate for Council District 18, Amanda Farias. I live in Council District 8, but
Okay.
the deputy speaker is not doing PB, but is doing Reso. So I forgot the other
I,
person, Algie
I,
Stevens.
th
But anyway,
I think I'm sorry. I think it's important to also recognize that with the participatory budgeting, it's not just education funds.
Yeah.
It's anything
no,
the city needs. So it's a bit more competitive in terms of the money, because you've got to get the people in there voting.
Yeah. So yes, thank you, Liz, for bringing that up. So Wanda, I might be referring some people to you, and Liz, thank you for that comment. Participatory budgeting is for everything from planting trees to bus stop indicators to community gardens to
Like,
whatever else, lights to sidewalk, whatever else. So you are competing against other projects for the community as well. But at least in my city council district, schools have a huge advantage because they're organized and they can turn out the votes. So I think you can take advantage of that fact if you have one of those schools that can turn out the vote. Simone, go ahead.
I have a quick question regarding District 75 schools. One of my schools is co-located with a District 75 school and another middle school. And one of the issues they had was that they don't have ADA accessible bathrooms within, they have like a few, but not on every floor. And those middle schools have inclusion programs. So the District
Mhm.
75 kids are going to other floors. And it wasn't really prioritized during our capital improvement session. And I was wondering if there are other avenues that we could use to request that, maybe through District 75. I mean, I don't want to take any funding away from, because it's probably also limited, but just because that school is located with two public schools, middle schools. I was wondering if they work together, if they have a better chance to
Yes.
get that fixed, because I was kind of dumbfounded that, I mean, why would you not have ADA accessible bathrooms in the entire building?
Yeah. No, it's actually illegal, right? Not that it means anything.
Mhm.
It is, you're supposed to have all public buildings ADA accessible. But it's even more egregious when you actually have a District 75 school and the building is not ADA accessible. Wanda, did you
Yes.
want to respond to that?
Yes, please. Thank you. So, depending on the project, as Michino said, if we have active participation and bringing the council member, and bringing the elected officials to the school, making sure that I usually used to become a pest. That's how I call myself. So I need you to come and visit this school because this is what's happening. A lot of the projects that has been submitted, and the one that I'm working the most right now, 78 projects were presented, and we got the budget delegates has to go and visit the school. As a matter of fact, the schools that are co-located are supposed is go by a DBN, and if, let me not say DBN, they are by the address of the building. So it is not like it's gonna be a District 75 that you're gonna be taking advantage of that. No, if the building itself need the repairs of the bathroom, and again, like Michino said, this is illegal because they need to be ADA compliant everywhere. This is a legal matter. The deadline for many of them to submit the ideas and to mine was this past January the 12th from the council member that I'm working for with Ms. Amanda Farias. But at the end of time, this actually need to be brought to school facilities and have the school construction authority actually come to your building because they can do some exceptions. I know that throughout the years, they have a craze to make sure that everybody is satisfied with everything they have. When it comes to the bathrooms, and let me ask, do you know who's your council member if that person is doing PB or is doing, well, they have to do Reso no matter what, but PB is not necessary. And the people who, the majority of the council who are not doing PB is because they have to go through a lot of hoops, and the council members prefer you going directly to him or to them and tell her, listen, I need this in my school, fix the bathroom, I need you to come over. So it is for the best convenience for you to contact their office, their constituent office, not the government office in 250 Broadway. Go to the district office and bring it to their attention. And listen, I need you to come over with me. They will give you the scheduler, everything. And like Shino said, let's do something really cool for them to make it enticing for them to come over and become very, very familiar with them so they know that you are there and you're not going to let them go.
Thank you, Wanda. Yeah, shame them
You're
into
welcome.
funding this. This is really shameful that they haven't done that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, man, go ahead.
Serene.
Yes, I would like to piggyback off of what Wanda said. This was supposed to be done, but from my experience sitting on a CEC, it doesn't matter what school is co-located. If it's a D75, once you do your walkthroughs, you're supposed to walk through every school and you're supposed to speak to every principal or director of every program that's in there and ask them what are their needs are, and you're supposed to list it down on your report because it's the building and it's for the students. It's not because, oh, this school is a D75, you're not going to do that. So I will also suggest that if you're not on the CC, get your CC to be involved to get this done, because when the CC gets involved, they get really scared. especially with school authorities, which I know, once you're on the CC and you're like, I need this, that, they're gonna get it done. So this is a disheartening situation that I'm hearing. And please speak to Wanda, or you could see myself. I was put my email in the chat so I could help you, because this trumps every other matter. Just because the deadline is closed, they're going to do something because the bathroom is not accessible. This trumps any deadline that we have, Reso A and any other deadline we have. This trumps it. Thank you.
Thank you. Simone is on the CEC, so hopefully we can pull some strings there, Simone. Okay, so
Thank you so much.
great. And in 5 minutes, I have to finish up because it's time to end and I want to be respectful of your time. So just very quickly, participatory budgeting delegates, there are volunteers who assess needs within the community, but you don't have to be a delegate to actually elevate your school needs. If you just have to find a volunteer who's serving on the participatory budget delegates, and you communicate with that person and say, hey, our school needs this and that, and you can elevate your projects that way. Or you can serve as the delegate yourself, right? You determine the project feasibility. This sounds really technical, but there's plenty of technical people who are going to work with you to do that. And then you work with the city agencies to develop project proposals. So this isn't just the school construction authority, it's also Parks Department and other departments for other types of projects. But you are going to work with the city agencies directly to really fully develop the project proposals. Delegates must be at least 11 years old or older. You have to live, work, own a business, attend school in the city council district. You may be a parent of a student who attends school in the district. So that actually opens up quite a bit of wider net than just strictly somebody who lives in the city council district. Definitely consider that. It has a completely different timeline, as you can imagine. It starts in October, November with the idea collection from the community. There's a website where you can actually submit your ideas. And then the budget delegates are created during that time. And then from November to February is when the budget delegates are developing the ideas collected in October, November. And then though, in April is when the community voting happens. And it's usually like a week window of time when you can actually vote for projects. And May, June-ish timeline is when the project is included in the New York City budget. And that's when you find out whether your project is funded or not. It's a fun process. Definitely look into it. If your city council member isn't participating, perhaps this is something you can suggest the city council member participate in. I know it's a lot of work for them, but it is a democratic process that is actually also very educational for the people who participate, because you get to see how this kind of process works in the city government. So, caution. There are similar processes for expense funding, that's money for programs, for both Resolution A and participatory budgeting, right? We just talked about capital projects for this workshop, but there are similar processes for programming funding as well. So don't get them confused. And when you're applying for these funding, just make sure you're applying for the right type of funding. I think they do a pretty good job of differentiating things, but just be aware that there is a process for expense funding, that's program funding, after school programs, arts programs, what have you, for this as well. Wanda?
Yes, it's the Civic Engagement Commission through the People's Money Initiative is the one that's doing this. The deadline is way past. It was October, but we are in cycle 2. I'm participating in both because everybody asked. So I was like, okay, let me look into it, and I was the first, one of the first. Actually, I was the very first budget delegate. Let me know they don't call it budget delegate for the Civic Engagement Commission and the People's Money Initiative. And That one is being reviewed right now. And if you go to the Civic Engagement Commission website, they will give you a lot more details about it. The
Can you add that
deadline is,
website in the chat, please, Wanda?
yes, yes.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
also I need to add that tomorrow is supposed to happen. We haven't received the link at all. Tomorrow is the city agency's briefing. So anybody that has any project, any idea that you have submitted through the ideas map through for participatory budgeting, is supposed to meet with the city agencies, school construction authority, parks and recreation, housing, Department of Transportation. India are supposed to meet with all the with anybody who wants to bring an idea, to tell them, listen, I need the street across my in front of my house fixed. We need a traffic light. That is supposed to happen tomorrow. And sadly, I haven't received the link for that, but it's supposed to happen tomorrow after 6 p.m. Could be after 5. So let's say 5. But as soon as I get it, I'm be emailing you, Michino, so perhaps you can share it at large.
Yep. I will
It's
share.
really, really important. That's it's supposed to happen for the Bronx. Every single borough is to have the date set up for their own. You cannot cross from Bronx to Manhattan like that. Every project that is in the Bronx will be discussed in the briefings that's happening for the Bronx, like that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Let
Yes.
me, what is it? Okay.
So
Let
just
me,
yeah, send me the information and I will share with the group tomorrow.
Wanda, I put the websites that you referenced already.
oh,
Thank you, Rima. Yes, what's confusing
some,
is the Civic Engagement Commission's acronym is also CEC. So we had a presentation by the Civic Engagement Commission when they were voting last year. I can't remember which month it was, but they came to us and we had a quick presentation on that. And we'll probably do that again when the voting comes up for that one. But all this to say that just be careful. There is an expense funding and capital funding, two different processes, two different timelines, different entities, but these are pots of monies that are available. If your school wants to do a visiting lecture series or something, there is a pot of money available for that. So you should definitely look into it. Okay. And be sure to use the capital plan application with city council and or the borough president. Just be clear that you're applying for capital plan when you're applying for school enhancements, right? You don't want to get mixed up with the expense funding. And take advantage of the expense funding. So there's just so many things out there, but just remember there's pot of money available for programming as well, and you should research it and look into it and try to get some things funded. We put together as the ECC a capital funding resource guide, which is available here at this website. And again, you will have this. So please share with your PTA leadership. I think this is really something that all the PTA leadership and school leadership teams on every school should have some good grasp of, because money is available from the city council and borough president, also participatory budgeting. But a lot of schools don't know anything about this. So I really want folks to know that these are resources that are available. So we try to put all that into one little resource guide. One of my pet peeves is I would love it if school can just apply to one online portal that goes to city council, borough president, and participatory budgeting, but that hasn't happened. So but wouldn't that be nice if schools just all they have to do was just apply in one place and that goes to all the funding sources? Maybe someday. Okay, pull out your phone.
I never thought of that. I never thought of that, and that's a great idea. I'm bringing that to attention.
Thank you. Yeah, that's been my thing that I just haven't, because every year when I was on the CEC, I would share my list of projects submitted by the schools with all the city council members and the borough president, right? And then at least they have an idea of which schools are asking for what. But then the schools have to apply separately to city council and borough president. So it would be nice if you just had one universal portal. All right, take out your phone. Please scan this QR code because we would love to get your feedback on this workshop. So I'm going to put it up there, and I should have a URL. I don't have the URL. You'll get it in the email. So if you don't have a phone to do a QR code, you will have a link to it. And we are a grassroots nonprofit organization with teeny tiny budget. So if you have a penny to spare, we would love your donation. But mostly, I'm really, really happy you came and joined us. I wasn't expecting a lot of people, but I'm really happy. And thank you to those of you who have so much to share in this space. Really appreciate having your expertise and wisdom. So with that, have a wonderful rest of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I hope you had a good day of reflection and renewed commitment to justice. And I'm going to let you go now.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Shino. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Shino. Good night. Have
Good
a
night,
blessed night.
Sharon.